Hello, world changers. So glad to have you on again today. We're going to be reading more of Kingdom Keepers today, starting to finish it up, get really close. Just a quick recap. So the two groups went on two different rides and found some clues using the 3D glasses. They found some random letters. Then at the skate park, Finn and Amanda got attacked by somebody on a mini bike that we do not know of yet. However, they were very cold, so that can lead to something. And lastly, Finn ended up fainting at his house. They are unsure why. And Maybeck is trapped in his sleep. He did not make it out of the night at the Disney castle. So we're going to start reading. Thanks for joining us. Chapter 24. Finn awoke on the same park bench where he'd first met Wayne, at the end of Main Street, across from the fire station. It was nighttime, though the park remained open. He looked down to see his arms and legs faintly glowing. He was his DHI self. Some kids saw him, and he knew he was in trouble if he didn't get out of there. A flash of light to his right, Finn strained to see through the thick crowds. Always so many people. And yes, there it was again, another flash of light. For an instant, the crowd parted. He saw Philby waving. Finn dragged himself heavily across the street, still feeling sluggish, leaving the curious kids behind, and caught up with Philby. "I thought that was you," Philby said, pocketing a flashlight. "You don't look so hot," Finn said. "Have you tried a mirror?" "Another brownout," Finn asked. "I assume so." "We're early," Finn said. "Yes, but if we're here, chances are the girls are too. We should check the apartment and the teepee." "Well, let's do it together," Finn suggested. "Maybeck?" Philby asked. "I went to his house," Finn answered. "He's asleep in bed and they can't even wake him up. Tomorrow morning, they're going to take him to the hospital and start running tests. We've got to find him before that. Who knows what they do to him?" "Maybeck was caught," Philby said, "and it wasn't security. It was the Overtakers. It had to be. We know he'd been poking around. The Overtakers don't want him messing with their DHI server. The brownouts, or feeling lousy like this, that's the server doing that. The Overtakers are trying to kill us," Finn said. "Slow us down. Scare us away." He didn't sound convinced. "Then I'd say that it's working," Finn said. "So where do we start? The apartment or the teepee?" Finn looked past Philby at the glowing windows above the fire station. "Neither," Finn said. "Follow me." Finn climbed the stairs on the side of the firehouse, two at a time. "I should have thought of this before. He told me he lived here." "Who?" Finn knocked on the door. Wayne answered. Philby and Finn were welcomed inside. It was a cozy room, all wood and brass, that felt like something from a ship. Wayne wore a heavy wool sweater, khaki pants, and Mickey and Minnie slippers. There were books everywhere, and no television or even a radio. The bed was up in the loft in the very peak of the room. "Wow," Philby said, looking around. There were Disney toys scattered around, antiques that went back decades. A fabric wall hanging showed off over 1,000 Disney pins. "I wonder how long it would take you to look me up," Wayne said. It seemed almost as if he'd been expecting them. There were 3 teacups by the stove, and 3 chairs set out facing one another. Wayne poured them some tea and gestured for the 2 boys to sit down. "Can you help us find Maybeck, Wayne?" Finn asked. "Was it Maleficent?" Philby asked. Wayne's eyebrows arched. He did not answer Philby directly. "What do you know about her?" He had owl-like circles beneath his ice blue eyes. He looked ominous and menacing now, instead of like the silly old man guy that Finn had thought him to be. He smiled thinly and said, "Amazing thing happens when we put our minds to it. There's a saying that seeing is believing, but believing is seeing as well, and touching, and hearing, and connecting. The witch, Maleficent, has something to do with this," Finn said. He told Wayne everything that had happened recently. "Apparently, she has everything to do with this," Wayne agreed. "Everything to do with the Overtakers," Finn tested. "There are other Overtakers besides Maleficent, though. Too many to count. Like the pirates. Worker bees is all. The pirates don't matter much, but you must underestimate nothing. No one. Conviction is the best part of intent. Few battles are won by strength alone. Cunning and knowledge, knowing your resources can help you overpower the most powerful." "How do we stop Maleficent?" Philby asked anxiously. He sipped the tea, liked it, and drank some more. Don't get ahead of yourselves, Wayne said. Maybeck, Finn said. They won't want anybody to see him, nor to hear him, should he call out, Philby continued. Someplace dark and noisy, Finn said. One of the attractions, Philby said, like Pirates of the Caribbean. The pirates had to take him. It's not dark enough, Finn said. And where would they hide him? On the boat, maybe, Philby said. Possibly, Wayne said, though his tone of voice suggested that he didn't give the idea much credence. Credence means he didn't really believe the idea much. Well, listen, Obi-Wan, Philby said sarcastically. Why don't you tell me and Luke here how to find him, and we'll make for hyperspace. Warmer, Wayne said to Philby through his engaged eyes to Finn. Space, mountain, Finn said, pitch black and super loud. Philby stepped forward excitedly. Is he right? Is that where we gotta go find him? Brilliant! Wayne sipped his tea, looking over his cup. I have no idea where your friend is being kept. It's a big park. Very big. Finn thought for a moment and then said, more important, it might be like a teepee inside there. A DHI shadow that would make Maybeck invisible. Easy to hide, to say the least. If Wayne knew any answers, his face revealed nothing. It's a place to start, Finn said. We have to start somewhere. Space Mountain's one of my favorite rides at Disney World, and my dad actually lost his favorite pair of glasses there when I was in 7th grade, and he still tells me about that to this day. Wayne said, they're keeping you from solving the fable. You see that, don't you? They're distracting you. And if we solve it, Philby asked. When we solve it, Finn said, looking right at Wayne. Rescue your friend, solve the fable. Only then will we know what is expected from you. Finn and Philby wouldn't be entering Space Mountain through the front door. Wayne told them of a trap door that existed in the very top of the pointed dome roof. The roof hatch was used by maintenance, and by his knowledge, that it had never been locked. If the boys could climb to the first level of the dome, about 15 feet up, they'd reach a metal ladder that ran up the back of the dome to the pinnacle. From there, they could enter the ride's interior. At Wayne's suggestion, the boys borrowed some ropes from the firehouse. Then they snuck through shadows, carrying the heavy ropes over their shoulders, and reached the backside of the attraction. Crouching in some bushes, looking at the steepness of the roof and the small metal ladder that led to the top, Finn said, the Overtakers have got to assume we'll come for Maybeck. But to them, we're kids, don't forget. They have patrols, cameras, maybe. So when we do this, we'll have to do it quickly. The roof was shaped something like a magician's hat, with a wide brim and a conical, peaked crown. There was an antenna on top. Philby proved his climbing skills by tossing one of the ropes over the metal railing on the brim part of the roof. He tied it off. We're set, he announced, waving Finn over. Finn, who was not big on heights, shimmied up the rope. In short order, he reached the brim of the roof. He threw a leg over and pulled himself up. Philby followed silently and without incident. They kept away from the edge of the roof, where they might be spotted, as Philby pulled up the rope and stashed it out of sight. Quickly, they ascended the white metal ladder and ran to the peak. Attached to the roof, it ran at the same steep angle as the cone. They reached the top, and sure enough, there was a metal trap door, exactly as Wayne had described it. Finn reached for the handle and pulled. It lifted open. He peered down into the black square, completely void of light. Void means not having any. Who's going first? Philby asked, his voice creaking. Finn led the way down the metal ladder. Philby followed and then descended silently. After a moment, Finn's eyesight began to adjust. They were way up inside the pointy hat pointed over the dome ceiling, a gigantic space that contained the entire Space Mountain roller coaster track. He made out a few red exit signs, but they were not bright enough to see by. The track was a tangle of metal fringed by catwalks and supported by towering I-beams and steel columns. Finn felt as though he were inside of a complicated clock. They reached a catwalk, a path that led along the roller coaster track, with a metal mesh floor, and followed it to a set of metal stairs leading down. This connected to another catwalk. Suddenly, it felt that they had entered a metal maze. This is crazy, Philby whispered. The place is huge. Maybeck could be anywhere. I'm not so sure about that, Finn said. Agreed, it's huge. But look around. Where are you going to hide him? Now that his eyes had fully adjusted, he could make out the size and scope of the complicated track. But it was all exposed and open. Not a good place to hide somebody. Hey, Finn said, holding out his hand, seeing his hand. Yeah, Philby said, I know. But he moved his own arm around to show Finn that his metal broke up the imaging. His arm appeared to be in pieces, separated by black stripes. The DHI projection in here was spotty at best. You take that side, he instructed Philby. We'll meet in the middle over here. He pointed out a low spot in the ride where the track turned sharply left. If something goes wrong, Philby cautioned, we get out of here and meet at the apartment. Got it. Finn descended yet another ladder and then followed a catwalk toward one of the exit signs, using it as a beacon. The catwalks reminded him of submarine movies. If he was hiding someone, Finn thought, he'd stash his hostage close to where guests made the most noise, in a place where any shouts for help would likely go unheard. Finn searched the track overhead for just such a spot. Then he leaned over the rail of a catwalk and looked below. Not far below him, and slightly to his left, he noticed an indistinct, dark shape that, as he approached, he realized was geometric. It was a large rectangle. Now he recognized it as a booth or storage item. Like the catwalks, its walls were of heavy wire and mesh. Finn climbed over the rail, lowered himself, and dropped to a catwalk below. He reached out and touched the wire mesh. It was covered in greasy dust that stuck to his fingers. It looked like a large garden shed, about 6 feet tall, 10 feet deep, and about 15 feet long. On the front of the shed, a huge canvas was hung that prevented Finn from entering inside. The canvas was tied down on the inside. Finn located the only door, which was wood-framed and also covered with wire mesh. He felt his way down the door and struck a piece of heavy metal. A padlock. Locked out. Psst. Finn tried to signal Philby, but got no answer. Finn looked around, off into the dark, realizing he'd completely lost track of his friend. He tried again. Psst. A muffled voice made him spin around. It was coming from inside the shed. Philby! Finn tried again, a little louder. He heard the scuffle of feet. Said the muffled voice behind him. Mayback! It's me, Finn! Finn struggled with the lock again and then remembered. He didn't need to unlock the door. Finn closed his eyes and concentrated on being made of light. Nothing but light. And he walked through the wall. Just as he'd swum through the water without feeling the effect of the current. Once through, he realized how much darker it was inside of the shed because of the canvas. Finn felt his way around, stepping over boxes and coils and pieces of metal. The muffled calls for help became more urgent. I'm right here, Finn said, turning toward the sound. Close by now, Finn squatted, felt around, and touched an arm. He jumped back, fell over, and knocked something loose, making a loud sound. Said Mayback, wiggling as he was. A piece of Mayback's DHI, his left side, suddenly showed. Finn lunged forward and untied the gag. Oh man, Mayback said, his gag slipping off. You okay? No, I'm famished. Means you're really hungry. And I'm thirsty. But thank you, man. Thank you. Finn untied Mayback's wrists and ankles. Mayback said, let's book it. Wow, the lighting changed a lot in here. Sorry about that. We gotta find Philby. He's in here somewhere, looking for you too. Mayback pulled on the locked door, and it didn't budge. But how did you... Right through the wall, Finn explained. That's fine for you, but what about me? I can't go through a dumb wall. Sure you can. No, I can't. You're gonna have to. Mayback stared at the dark canvas and the locked door. Are you telling me I could have just walked out of here all along? Not if you've convinced yourself you were trapped, Finn replied. Mayback reached out. His hand struck the canvas. You've got to lose the attitude, Mayback, Finn instructed. You're only hitting the wall because you think that's what's supposed to happen. I don't have an attitude. He waited for some support for Finn. Wait, do I? Finn demonstrated. First, he reached out and touched the canvas. Then he reached over a second time and his hand and forearm passed right through up to his elbow. I do not have an attitude, Mayback repeated. Prove it, Finn said. He was worried about the noise Philby was making trying to get over the shed. The bumps and bangs seemed amplified in this echo chamber. On Maybach's sixth try, he walked through the wall of the enclosure. Once on the other side, he bent over, as if in pain. "You okay?" Finn asked. Giddy with the accomplishment, Maybach started giggling. "What a dumb jerk. I could have walked out here all along." "Not with your hands tied. That rope is from this side. The rope would have stopped you from getting through the wall." Maybach blurted out, "It was Jez." "What was Jez?" she said. "She called," Maybach said. "Called your house," Finn said, having figured out some of this on his own. "Last night, just before you crossed over. She said she'd meet me." "When you checked your watch," Finn said, speculating, "the line you fed us about having a hot date, you really did have a hot date. I ditched the girls at It's a Small World. You were going to meet Jez and me at the carousel, but all of a sudden, I was so cold. I could barely move, like slow motion." "Yeah, cold," Finn said. He was thinking, been there, done that. For nearly a week, the kids met inside the park after going to bed, but only for a matter of minutes. As quickly as possible, they would use the button to return home, having looked for no more clues. They caught up on sleep, they did their homework, they rejoined their families. Maybach's abduction had worn them out and frightened them to the point of not wanting to continue on this journey. They overcame their reluctance only when Philby showed up at one of their meetings telling of a newspaper story he'd read about an electrical company power station that had been attacked and drained of all of its power. "It's not a coincidence," he told the others. "This is spreading beyond the park." On Saturday morning, the girls decided to use their complimentary passes to enter the Magic Kingdom legally. As kids, not DHIs, they felt safer. They wore disguises in order to keep fans from spotting them and carried 3D glasses to wear on the rides, so they're looking for clues during the day. As they stood outside waiting to board the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh, a cartoony voice came over the speakers saying, "Happy Wednesday!" It was this and other references on the ride that had led them to pick it as the most wind-oriented ride in the park. Wind was the third clue of the Stonecutter's fable. They sat down in the car and the ride began. Black lights made their teeth glow white and their skin and clothing almost disappear. "Glasses," Willa announced, donning hers. Charlene followed. "You look right, I'll look left," Willa coached. "If we see any letters, big letters in an unexpected place, we're supposed to write them down." Charlene said, "I've got it." She sounded nervous, and Willa understood her concern. The rides had been anything but friendly since the hunt had begun. As they traveled along, doors swung open to admit their cars into each new scene. Reaching the third scene, Charlene realized she heard no one talking. She looked back and saw that there was no one in the car behind him. Raising to her knees, she saw no one in the car behind that one either. Yet the line out front had been packed. "Willa?" "Over there," Willa said, pointing out a large, colorful tree drawn onto a panel. She lifted and dropped her 3D glasses onto her nose in order to make sure. But yes, there was a single letter drawn into the leaves of the tree. She called out quickly, "It's an S!" "S," Charlene said, puzzled. "But look behind us." Willa was too excited to look back. "There's no one behind us," Charlene announced. "No one in the cars behind us. Why not?" Willa pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and scribbled down S. As she did, a drop of water appeared on the paper. Then another, and another. "Behind us!" Charlene cried urgently. Willa looked back. She looked up. More water. The doors to the next scene popped open and shut. They were in a rain scene. Rain drawn in long lines along the wall. Rain falling from the ceiling. "Since when is this part of the ride?" Willa complained, stuffing the paper into her pocket. That moment, the car stopped moving. "What's happening?" Charlene whined. "Why are we stopping?" A few light raindrops changed into a downpour. At first it seemed funny, but then it wasn't simply rain. It was a torrent of water. Buckets. Both girls gasped for breath through a steady stream of water pouring down into them. It was hard to breathe without coughing. "This isn't right," Willa cried. Now the water beneath the car began to rise. The car lifted, floating. Charlene lunged forward nervously, nearly capsizing them. She leaned out of the car and pushed against the large doors to the next scene. "They're stuck! They won't open!" As the water rose at an astonishing rate, the car floated higher and higher. Sparks flew as electrical wires were submerged. "Stay in the car," Willa hollered. Light sockets sparked and zaps. "We could be electrocuted." The car floated quickly toward the ceiling. Willa understood the worst of it. The higher they rose, the less available the air would be. They would either drown or suffocate. "Willa," Charlene moaned. "I know." The cars rose higher still. Sparks flew again as more lights went under. "We're in trouble," Willa said, surprisingly calm. "Duh! We need a way out." Just now occurred to you, did it?" The rain fell like a waterfall. The car was now less than 3 feet from the ceiling. Another foot or two and the car would be pinned with the girls inside of it. "Why won't the doors open to the next scene?" Willa thought. "Sit still," she warned Charlene. Studying the large doors, Willa stood up in the car. Charlene hollered at her to sit down as the car threatened to tip over. Willa grabbed the overhead pipe to stabilize the car. She then pulled hand over hand to draw the car closer to the doors. But as the water rose with so little room, Willa was forced back down into her seat. "No time." Water streamed down her neck and shoulders as she spotted a sawed-off length of pipe jammed across the top of the large doors, blocking them and holding them shut. The rain was nothing more than an emergency sprinkler system gone wild. All this trouble could be easily explained. The sprinklers were malfunctioning. Maleficent had done her job well. Willa pulled on the sawed-off length of pipe, but couldn't budge it. She called for a stunned Charlene to help as the water rose steadily higher. Together they pulled. Water spilled over the side of the car, quickly filling it. Willa chanted, "1, 2, on 3. Both girls heaved on the pipe, pulling it free. The doors blew open. The girls fell back into the car as a few thousand gallons of water rushed into the next scene, and the cars rode the leading edge of the wave like a surfboard. The plume of water spun and turned and twisted its way out toward the ride's finish, leveling off as it had reached the exit. Their car lowered and settled into the track, right where it had started. The weighted guests stood there drenched head to toe. A lake of water had flooded the pavement outside the attraction. In all the confusion, the two girls hurried from the car and ran for their lives. That is where we're going to end it for today. Remember, the world is better because you guys are in it. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.